Hello everyone, welcome back to the Top Defense Channel. The U.S. Air Force's fleet of B-52H heavy strategic bombers are on track to becoming a fleet of flying centenarians. The service wants to purchase over 600 new engines for its B-52s, ensuring that the big, ugly fat fella can fly on to 2050 or later. This will practically ensure that some bombers delivered in the early 1960s will still be dropping bombs in the early 2060s. The first B-52s entered service in June 1955, and by the time production of the Stratofortress ended in 1962, a total of 744 had been built. Only a fraction are still in service, but even today, the Air Force's fleet includes 58 B-52H bombers in active service, while 18 more remain in reserve. Thanks to a steady stream of updates, the bomber will be taking to flying until the 2040s or later. In fact, by the time it retires, the great-grandchildren of the original pilots who first took flight in the B-52 could be behind the controls of the final aircraft to take to the skies. At the end of last year, the Air Force resurrected the aircraft, dubbed Wise Guy, from its Boneyard facility at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, Arizona. It will replace another B-52 that had been destroyed in a fire in Guam. It was only the second B-52H ever to be returned to duty after being sent to the Boneyard. The first, Ghost Rider, was returned to service and sent to Parksdale, Ap, Louisiana in 2015. Keeping the 83.25-ton, 159 feet long B-52H in the air has involved a continuous series of upgrades, but the DNA of the B-52 hasn't changed. 6 years ago, Boeing delivered enhanced internal weapons bay launchers for 6 of the B-52s. That upgrade facilitated GPS-guided or smart weapons in the weapons bay. The B-52 bomber will remain relevant for decades to come, said Boeing's Jeff Lupton at the time. Now the USAF is looking to expand the B-52's weaponry platforms, fitting the 76 B-52s still flying for the U.S. Air Force with the AGM-183, a air-launched rapid response weapon. Lockheed Martin picked up the $480 million contract to develop the air-launched hypersonic weapon. "We're going to make it the first hypersonic shooter in the American inventory," said Major General Jabara. The U.S. Air Force is also planning to re-engine its fleet of B-52 Stratofortresses in an $11 billion overhaul program. GE Aviation, Raytheon Technologies, Pratt & Whitney Unit, and Rolls-Royce are all competing for the contract. The contract requires 608 engines, plus spares will be delivered over 17 years. Pratt & Whitney TF-33 PW103 engines have powered the B-52s since the 1960s. The new engines will need to keep the B-52 in the air until the middle of the century. The U.S. Air Force is eyeing a military derivative of an existing commercial aircraft engine. Currently, the existing engines, the B-52 has 8. Each delivers 7,000 lb thrust, 7 to 5.7 kN. The replacement engine will need to match this plus a more modern turbofan that provides a higher bypass ratio and digital engine controls. With an eye on ongoing costs and environmental concerns, reduced fuel consumption, noise, emissions, and operating costs are also needed. According to Flight Global, Rolls-Royce will bid with the F-130 engine, a military derivative of the company's BR-700 engine. Pratt & Whitney will offer the PW-800 engine. GE Aviation has CF-3410 engines and Passport turbofans on the table. The U.S. Air Force is yet to award the contract. The re-engine program will replace about 10% of the B-52's overall components, but it won't change the B-52's mid-20th century airframe and much of its analog technology. However, the constant upgrades mean that old-school but steadfast airframe will keep flying for decades to come. In doing so, the B-52 Stratofortresses will continue to provide the U.S. with critical airstrike and defense capabilities.